Hello friends. As promised, I continue the review of the capabilities of the multiprotocol network coordinator SMlight SLZB-MR1. In the first part of the video, for those who haven't seen it, the link is in the description. I talked in detail about its design and the extensive interface features, including firmware updates for the core and both radio modules. I also showed the device's standard integration with Home Assistant. In this video, we'll move on to practice, real use cases. I decided to start with the operation mode where both radio modules are flashed as Zigbee coordinators, and together we'll explore the setup and connection to the standard Home Assistant integration, ZHA, in combination with the Zigbee2mqtt add-on, as well as the simultaneous operation of two Zigbee2mqtt add-ons. By the way, in this video, I decided to demonstrate installing Zigbee2mqtt via the web interface, not by manually creating configuration files. Why might such a combination be useful? In the case of ZHA plus Zigbee2mqtt, you can achieve maximum possible device support. What doesn't work in one system can be connected to the other. Such situations happen. I've shown them in my videos. With two Zigbee2mqtt instances, you can balance the load, which is useful when you have many Zigbee devices or when some devices frequently transmit large amounts of data. Then it makes sense to keep them separate from others. More details ahead, but before we start, please support this video with your likes and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new reviews and tutorials. While I was preparing the material for this part of the video, a firmware update for the device was released, version 2.8.8, which I was kindly notified of by the corresponding SMlight integration sensor. As for the update itself, I prefer to perform it through the device's interface. This allows you to review the changes made and better control the update process. Now let's move on to ZHA. In the menu where we installed the SMlight integration, click the button to add a new integration. We need to find the Zigbee Home Automation Integration, abbreviated as ZHA. This is the standard tool in Home Assistant for working with Zigbee devices. The integration tries to automatically detect the coordinator. In my case, it found other devices on the network, as I have quite a few, but not the one I needed, so we'll add it manually. An informational window appears, stating that we need a suitable device for this. Click Continue. In the drop-down menu, select the option for manually adding a coordinator. What exactly we need to add, you can see this in the coordinator interface, which I covered in detail in the first part of the video. We will use the first radio module. I switch it to the ZHA tab. We'll need this address string and the radio type, EZSB. This type is selected by default, so we leave it as is and proceed to the next step. Now we use the address string of the device, which we take from the web interface. We don't touch the other options, leave them at their default values. Since this is a new network, we need to choose the option to erase network settings and create a new network. An interesting point, two devices were added at once. The EZSB coordinator, the one we actually added, and a Texas Instruments coordinator, which, as a reminder, is the manufacturer of the second radio module. A new tile called ZHA appeared in the integrations menu. It displays two devices. Let's take a look. Here is what the ZHA integration tab looks like. Currently, there is one entry added with the address we specified. By the way, you can add other coordinators in the same way. Each one will appear here as a separate line. But I'm more interested in the fact that two coordinators were added instead of one. It seems like the system detected the second radio module, although it has a different network port. Here's the EZSB page. It contains device information, including type, address, firmware version, just as expected. As for the second device, there is no information at all. Everything is blank. I don't like to clutter the system with unnecessary entities, so let's delete it and work only with the one we actually added. That's much clearer and more logical. The integration is configured, the coordinator is added. Now we need to try connecting Zigbee devices to it. But first, let's check the device dashboard. Here, in the connections row, we now see one client, the ZHA integration. Returning to Home Assistant, on the coordinators page in the ZHA integration, click the Add Device button. This activates pairing mode, which will detect Zigbee devices that have pairing mode enabled. Usually, this is done by pressing and holding a button. The first device I connected was a combo sensor that I previously reviewed. It's interesting because it provides several different parameters. The connection was fully successful. Here's its page in the integration. It found a motion sensor, plus illumination, temperature, and humidity readings. Additionally, it shows battery level and has an identification button. Now let's connect a router-type device. This will be a ZHA ecosystem smart plug. Here, everything is also in order. There's relay control, energy monitoring sensors, voltage display, and accumulated energy consumption. And this is a Xiaomi button. Among the objects, only the battery level sensor is displayed, while button presses appear in the system as events, visible in the log on the right. Now it's time to connect the second radio module. It will work with the Zigbee2mqtt add-on. To avoid referencing my other videos, I decided to show the entire process from scratch. Go to the Settings menu, Add-ons option. In the bottom right corner, there's a button, Add-on Store. That's the one we need. First, we need to install the Mosquitto broker, a server that works over the MQTT protocol. It serves as a bridge between Home Assistant and Zigbee2mqtt, which will communicate with each other through it via MQTT. Click Install and wait for the add-on to be downloaded and installed. After that, don't launch it right away. Go to the Configuration tab. The point is, MQTT is a very common protocol for smart home device communication, and it will likely be useful again. So it makes sense to set it up right away. We need the first section here, Logins. For Zigbee2mqtt, there's no need to enter anything here, since it will use internal system-level authentication between add-ons. But for third-party systems or devices, you'll need to set a login and password here that they can use to connect. In this example, both are set to MQTT, but you can use any values you prefer. You can copy this example from the description below the video. Be sure to click Save, the button located just below in this settings block. Pay close attention. The next network settings block has an identical button. Also check that the settings were saved. The Save button should be inactive, and your entered values should be visible in the Logins field. After that, launch the server and proceed with installing Zigbee2mqtt itself. Return to the add-on store. Zigbee2mqtt is not in the default list, so it needs to be added. In the upper right corner, click the three-dot menu and select Repositories. From the video description, copy the Zigbee2mqtt repository address and paste it into the pop-up window. Click Add. If everything is done correctly, a new repository called Zigbee2mqtt will appear here. You can close the window. Refresh the add-on store page, usually done by pressing F5. A new section appears, Zigbee2mqtt. There are 3 variants, the standard one, which we need, Edge, for developers, and Proxy, for external installations. Go to the standard version page, click Install, and wait while the add-on is downloaded and installed into the system. As promised, the Zigbee2mqtt setup will be entirely via the web interface. No configuration files, although personally, I find that method more familiar and convenient. Click the Start button. Additional lines appear on the screen: host name, CPU load, which may be quite high at first, and RAM usage. Let's go to the Log tab and see what's happening. Since this is the first launch of the add-on, it is currently creating the initial configuration and generating the registration page for that purpose. Return to the first tab, Info, and click the button to access the web interface. And here's the registration page. It was created to make the setup process as easy as possible, even for beginners. The first item, Device Discovery, is useful for those using a USB Zigbee stick, as it allows you to select the correct port immediately without searching through system info and entering it manually. But in our case, that's not what we need. We are using a network coordinator, in this case, the second radio module. Copy the device path from its interface from the ZHA and Z2M tabs under the Zigbee2mqtt section. Don't copy the word port, start from TCP. Paste this path into the field located below the local coordinator search menu. The next field is the coordinator type. As of the video's recording, there are 5 types. We need stack, which is also specified in the Settings tab where we just copied the path. Next comes Zigbee network configuration. If you specify the number of the nearest Wi-Fi channel, 2.4 GHz range, the system will suggest the Zigbee channel furthest from it. But since Wi-Fi routers usually change channels dynamically by default, and in apartment buildings the entire range may be in use, you can just leave this blank. The default Zigbee channel, 11, is a standard option and can be left unchanged. Other parameters, key and PAN ID, leave in auto-generate mode. Next is the MQTT configuration, topic name, which can also be left default, server address, username, and password. These will be added automatically. This uses an internal authentication mechanism, not related to the login and password we configured for the Mosquitto broker. The final settings, enabling the front end, setting the port, enabling Home Assistant integration, and log level, all can be left as is. Click the Submit button. Done. The settings are applied, and Zigbee2mqtt is now ready to run. Go back to the add-on page. Enable all options except Auto Update. It's better to handle that manually, and click Start. To monitor the first launch, which may take several minutes, it's better to use the Log tab to catch any potential errors. In this case, everything was set up correctly and Zigbee2mqtt started successfully. Since we enabled the option to add the add-on to the sidebar, it can now be launched with a single click. This is how the default interface looks. No devices are connected yet. Let's go into the Settings menu, accessible via the button in the upper right corner of the screen. Go to the Home Assistant Integration tab. I recommend enabling the option that activates the old-style action sensor mode. This is useful for buttons, logical switches, dimmers, etc. It allows you to use, in my opinion, more convenient automation triggers based on the action sensor state changes. In the new model, button presses are registered as events. Personally, I don't find that approach as useful. After enabling the option, click Submit. Also, in the same menu where we just selected settings, there is an About option. Clicking it brings up the System Info page. Here you can see the Zigbee2mqtt version, 2.4.0 at the time of this video, and the Coordinator firmware version, March 25, 2025, which I showed in the first part. Here's the add-ons configuration file, located in the default folder, Home Assistant, Zigbee2mqtt, and named configuration.yaml. Just like Home Assistant's main config file, but in a different location. It reflects all the settings we applied on the registration page. Also shown are the generated PAN ID and network key. On the Coordinator's web interface dashboard, now two connections are displayed, ZHA, the first radio module, and Z2M, the second. Let's connect some devices here as well. This is a microwave presence sensor, using a radar operating at 24 GHz, which I featured in one of my recent videos. I also showed how to create a converter for it. That converter is now included in the official Zigbee2mqtt build. This is how the device info page looks. It displays the name, model, manufacturer code, role in the network, in this case, router, pairing status, and another useful parameter, last seen, which shows the time since the last successful data exchange. This is disabled by default. To enable it, go to the Settings mode, Advanced tab. Look for this option and select ISO 8601 from the drop-down menu. To save settings, scroll down and click Submit at the bottom of the tab. After that, the device list will show the last response time for each connected device. Not long ago, Zigbee2mqtt added the option to change the web interface theme. To do this, go back to Settings, this time the Front-End tab. Look for the Package option. There are two themes, one set by default, the other selectable. Let's change the default theme and see how it looks. In this mode, the add-on looks like this. In the same menu, feel free to experiment with color themes and switch from dashboard to device view until you find what works best for you. Here's what the device info page looks like in the new theme. Now a few words about pairing new devices. To activate pairing mode, use the button in the upper right corner of the screen. It shows the selected pairing method. By default, the mode is all, meaning the system will decide automatically. Next to the button is a drop-down menu. Clicking it reveals all available options. Besides automatic, you can assign a specific coordinator or router, in this case, the presence sensor. This is useful if you're adding a device far from the coordinator but close to a router. This starts a countdown during which the coordinator will detect devices in pairing mode. You can connect several devices at once, not just one at a time. When you've connected all the necessary devices, click the same button again to disable pairing mode, or it will shut off automatically when the timer ends. The devices are now visible in Zigbee2mqtt, and their info is also added to the Mosquitto broker. But Home Assistant still doesn't see them. We need to link it with the broker. For that, we go to the Integrations menu again. After Mosquitto broker is installed, a window automatically appears suggesting the MQTT integration. Click Add, then Submit in the new window. The integration immediately detects the devices added in Zigbee2mqtt, as well as a virtual device, the bridge, which enables add-on control at the Home Assistant level. With the sensor and button added, plus the bridge, there are now 3 devices shown in the integration. Everything here is listed as a standard entity. This is what Home Assistant sees and what can be controlled both via the UI and automations. This is the bridge page, that is, the add-on itself. Here you can view the Zigbee2mqtt version and coordinator firmware, enable pairing mode, change logging level, or restart the add-on. This is the device page, in this case, the presence sensor. It displays the same info as the Exposes tab in Zigbee2mqtt. Some entities may be disabled. They can be activated here via settings. And here's the button. Since we previously enabled the action sensor mode, it now appears, and button presses show as brief status changes. In my opinion, that's more convenient than dealing with event-type triggers. Now in Home Assistant, the coordinator is connected twice. The first radio module via ZHA, the second via Zigbee2mqtt, and you can choose where to pair each device. They can also interact with each other in automations. As a trigger, we use a single press of the button, reflected by the action sensor state. In the action section, we control a smart plug that's connected via ZHA. When the trigger fires, it will toggle. Similarly, automations can use devices from any integration. Here's how those switch events triggered by automation appear in the device's history. And the final use case for a coordinator with 2 radio modules is setting up 2 instances of Zigbee2mqtt. This is useful when splitting a large number of devices across networks, for example, more than 101, or to offload devices that generate a heavy message load into a separate network. I removed the devices from ZHA and then deleted the ZHA integration itself. On the coordinator dashboard, there is now again only one connection, Zigbee2mqtt. We need to install a second instance of the Zigbee2mqtt add-on. Go back to the add-on store, open the menu in the top right corner, and choose Repositories. You'll see the repository we previously added. Copy the link. To allow the system to add another identical repository, the URL must differ by at least 1 character. For example, use HTTP instead of HTTPS. It's technically different, but leads to the same location. For a third instance, you could add a slash at the end. For a fourth, both a slash and HTTP, and so on. Done. Now there are 2 identical repository entries, including the displayed address. But if you try to add another, it must differ from all previously added ones. Refresh the browser page. Now the add-on store displays 2 Zigbee2mqtt sections, each with 3 options. In one of them, the standard version is highlighted. That's the one already installed. So we move to the newly added section. Install the add-on. The next steps will be similar, but with some very important adjustments. For the first instance, we used default settings and launched it right away. That's not allowed here. First, go to the Configuration tab. You must specify a different folder path. By default, it's Zigbee2mqtt, which is already in use. I just added a \_2 to the folder name. Don't worry about the top-level folder name config. It's physically the same folder as Home Assistant that you see in File Editor. Save the change in this section, then in the lower section, network. You must also change the port number, since the default one is already taken. I just used the next available number and saved. Now you can launch the second instance. At first, CPU usage may be high. That's normal. Once the load drops, it means the add-on is running, and you can go to the web interface. If anything goes wrong, check the log tab. Error descriptions will be there. In my case, there were no errors, so I once again see the familiar registration page for the initial configuration. Copy the address starting with TCP for the first radio module. The coordinator type here is Ember. First paste the address. Then specify the type, in this case, Ember. To prevent interference between the two radio modules, the second Zigbee2mqtt instance will operate on channel 15. Another very important point, similar to how we changed the folder name for the second add-on, we also need to change its mqtt topic name. I added \_2 as well. Everything else can remain as is. Submit the entered information. Now the second add-on can be launched. Enable the options. Show on sidebar. Enable watchdog. Auto start on boot is enabled by default. Now there are two identical Zigbee2mqtt icons in the sidebar. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, there was no easy way to visually distinguish them. The second instance is still empty with the default interface. How and what to configure? I already showed using the first add-on as an example. It's the same process here. The About tab version is the same as the first, and the coordinator type is EmbersNet. Here are the folders for both add-ons. 2 is not the limit. You can add more if needed. For example, when managing remote coordinators across different locations using a single server. Here I connected a button and a smart plug that were previously used in ZHA. Everything was correctly identified and connected. And this is the first Zigbee2mqtt instance, with a presence sensor and a ZHA ecosystem button. One more note. Although each add-on has a different topic on the Mosquitto broker, the mqtt topic name used by Home Assistant is the same for all. That's the one the mqtt integration listens to. Since the device names are different, they won't conflict, even if multiple Zigbee2mqtt instances post to the same topic. This is what the integration looks like now. All devices, including both bridges, appear in a single list. For Home Assistant, the number of add-ons doesn't matter. It communicates with all devices through the same integration. Here's another automation example. Using a button from one Zigbee2mqtt instance and a smart plug from the other. Everything interacts seamlessly. The only limitation that comes to mind is Zigbee groups. Naturally, devices in a group must be on the same coordinator. As you can see, from the system's perspective, working with SLZB-MR1 is just like working with two separate coordinators. You can use different combinations of integrations and add-ons, both identical and mixed. That's all for now. I hope this video was interesting and helpful to you. I'd be grateful for your likes. They help the channel grow on YouTube. And if you don't want to miss future videos, subscribe to my channel. In the video description, I'll leave links to all mentioned resources, as well as to my Telegram channels and social media pages, where you can join smart home communities. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Peace to everyone.